The Cryaxian ships appeared suddenly in Earth's skies one summer morning. They were huge metal structures that blocked out the sun in major cities across the world. People stopped and stared upward, some in fear, others in wonder. Captain Jun of the South Korean military watched from his base near Seoul as the first alien ships descended. His radio crackled with urgent reports from around the world. All missiles failed to reach targets, came one report. Fighter jets losing power mid-flight, said another. No response to communication attempts, said a third. Within hours, the aliens began their attack. They did not use big explosions or destroy cities like in old movies. Instead, they sent down smaller ships that landed in strategic locations: government buildings, military bases, power plants, and communication centers. From these ships emerged the Cryaxians. They stood taller than humans, with 4 arms and skin that seemed to shift colors slightly. They wore armor that reflected bullets and carried weapons that fired beams of energy that could cut through tank armor. "Hold position," Jun shouted to his soldiers as they faced a group of approaching aliens. The soldiers fired their weapons, but the bullets bounced off the alien armor. The Cryaxians raised their weapons almost casually and fired. A wave of energy washed over the human soldiers, and they fell to the ground unconscious. Within 3 days, most major governments had surrendered. The aliens established control centers in captured cities. They did not kill humans unless they resisted. Instead, they set up new rules and systems. Humans could continue most daily activities, but under Cryaxian supervision. Min watched this happen from her apartment in Seoul. She had been a police officer before the invasion, trained as a marksman. Now, she observed the aliens through binoculars from her window. Unlike human soldiers, the alien commanders walked openly in the streets. They didn't wear helmets. They didn't fear attacks. "They think we're already beaten," Min whispered to herself as she watched a high-ranking Cryaxian inspect a human food market. She could tell he was important by the markings on his uniform and the way other aliens bowed slightly when he passed. 1 week after the invasion, Min met secretly with other former police officers and soldiers in an abandoned subway tunnel. "They have better technology, but they have weaknesses," said Ta, a former army sergeant. "They don't expect resistance now that they've won." Min nodded. "Their commanders are exposed. They don't hide because they don't think they need to." An older man named Elder Sung, who had fought in conflicts before, spoke up. "In the old wars, when one side had better technology, the other side had to fight differently. We can't match their strength, but we can find other ways." Over the next few weeks, Min observed the aliens carefully. She noticed that they had a spot at the base of their neck where their armor was thinner to allow movement. She also noticed that they seemed to struggle somewhat with Earth's gravity, moving more slowly than humans. Min began to collect supplies. She recovered her old police rifle from where she had hidden it when the aliens ordered all weapons surrendered. She found a quiet building with a view of the alien command center they had established in the old city hall. 3 months after the invasion, Min watched through her rifle scope as the same high-ranking Cryaxian she had seen earlier stood on the steps of the building, addressing a group of human workers. The alien stood tall, confident, completely unafraid. Min steadied her breathing. The distance was considerable, but she had trained for years. She aimed at the spot where the alien's armor had the small gap. She fired. The sound was not loud, just a crack that was quickly lost in the city noises. But the effect was immediate. The alien commander fell. The other Cryaxians looked around in confusion, not understanding what had happened. Min quickly packed her rifle and left the building through a back exit she had prepared. By the time alien patrols arrived at the sniper location, she was already blocks away, blending in with other humans. That night, the resistance group met again. "It worked," Min told them. "They didn't expect it. They have no defense against a well-placed bullet from a distance." Ta smiled grimly. "One commander down, but there are many more. Still, now we know they can be hurt." Elder Sung nodded slowly. This is just the beginning. We need more snipers, more watchers. We need to become ghosts that they cannot see or catch. Across the city that night, action patrols increased. For the first time, the alien commanders looked nervous as they walked the streets. They began to look up at windows and rooftops, suddenly aware of their vulnerability in this strange world they thought they had conquered. 3 years had passed since the action invasion. In an abandoned subway station beneath Seoul, Captain Jun stood before a group of 20 men and women. Maps covered the walls. Weapons were neatly arranged on tables. Everyone in the room had a single skill in common. They were all expert marksmen. This is what we call the Ghost Protocol, Jun explained, pointing to diagrams showing sniper positions around the city. We strike without being seen, without leaving traces. We are ghosts to them. Min sat in the front row. The stock of her rifle was now wrapped in worn tape, and her once clean police uniform had been replaced by dark, practical clothes that helped her blend into shadows. She had 5 confirmed kills of action commanders. Each one had been carefully planned over weeks. They still don't understand how we're killing them, Jun continued. Their technology detects energy weapons, explosives, and electronic signals. But they don't understand simple physics, a bullet moved by nothing more than gunpowder and gravity. In another corner of the room, Da, once a math teacher, now worked out complex calculations for the snipers. Wind speed, humidity, temperature, all affected how a bullet would travel over long distances. The Kraaxian homeworld has different gravity and a thicker atmosphere, Dad explained. Their scientists haven't adjusted their security systems for Earth conditions. That's our advantage. The next morning, Min climbed through the broken window of a tall apartment building. The aliens had cleared out the top floors of most high buildings, but they couldn't watch everything. She set up her position slowly and carefully, checking her sight lines through her scope. 2 kilometers away, a Kraaxian transport was scheduled to arrive carrying the senior commander. Min had been tracking this target for weeks. Intelligence gathered by children who moved freely through the streets suggested this commander was developing new security measures against the human resistance. Min waited 4 hours without moving. When the transport finally arrived, she watched as 6 Kraaxians exited the vehicle. She identified her target by the distinctive markings on his uniform. He was surrounded by guards, but they were looking for threats at street level. Min took 3 slow breaths, then held the last one. She squeezed the trigger gently. Through her scope, she saw the commander fall 1.8 seconds later. The guards looked around in confusion, weapons raised, but with no target to aim at. Min was already packing up her rifle. 15 minutes later, she was walking calmly through a market several blocks away. Just another human among hundreds. That evening, the resistance gathered again. Their network had grown. Runners brought messages between separate cells across the city. They learned that similar groups had formed in other cities around the world. "They're starting to fear us," Jun said, showing photos of Kraaxian commanders now wearing bulky protective gear around their necks and heads. They're changing their patterns, staying inside more. Elder Sung hobbled into the meeting, leaning on a cane. Despite his age, his mind remained sharp. "They're bringing in specialists to find us. I heard from our sources that they call us the Silent Death." The next week brought new challenges. Strange devices appeared on street corners, sensors that Dad believed might detect metal or gunpowder. Alien patrols began checking buildings near their command centers more thoroughly. Min and another sniper named Sun had to abort 3 separate missions when alien patrols came too close to their positions. The Kraaxians were learning, adapting. Then came a breakthrough. A human who cleaned inside the alien headquarters smuggled out information about the Kraaxian biology. Dai pored over the stolen documents. "Look at this," he said excitedly. "Their vision is different from ours. They see better in the infrared spectrum, but worse in normal light. And their hearing isn't as good at detecting the specific frequency of our rifle shots." Jun smiled for the first time in weeks. So we can use that. Can we make special ammunition that would be more effective? Working through the night, Dye and a former gunsmith modified bullets to fragment in specific ways that would be more deadly to Cryaxian physiology. 2 days later, Min lay hidden on a rooftop near the central alien command post. A rare gathering of 3 mid-level commanders was taking place. They stood in what they thought was a secure courtyard, surrounded by walls and guards. But the walls couldn't stop a bullet fired from above. Min used her new ammunition, aiming carefully. 1 shot, 1 kill, then a second. By the time she fired at the 3rd commander, guards were already rushing about in confusion. But they were looking in the wrong places, scanning for technology signatures that weren't there. As alarms sounded across the city, Min slipped away through pre-planned routes, passing her rifle to a waiting team member who hid it in a special compartment in a food cart. The message spread through the resistance network that night. 3 commanders with 1 sniper. The humans celebrated quietly in their hidden rooms, while above them, the Cryaxians began to understand that controlling Earth would not be as simple as they had thought. 6 months had passed since the Ghost Protocol began its operations. The Cryaxian response grew increasingly harsh. Field Marshal Bach, the highest-ranking alien on Earth, stood in his command center surrounded by displays showing maps of Seoul. Red dots marked where his officers had been killed by human snipers. Find them. Bach slammed his upper arms against the table while his lower arms remained clasped behind his back. How can creatures with such primitive technology continue to eliminate our commanders? The Cryaxians implemented new security measures. They cleared out all buildings within 2 kilometers of their bases. They installed heat and motion sensors on rooftops. They began wearing full environmental suits that protected their vulnerable areas, but made movement awkward. In the resistance base, Captain June studied these developments with a grim smile. They're afraid, he told the gathered snipers. For the first time, they don't feel invincible. Min nodded. But it's getting harder to find good positions, and they've started punishing humans who live near sniper attacks. This was the terrible truth. After each successful assassination, the aliens would round up people from the surrounding area. Some were questioned. Others were sent to labor camps. Some simply disappeared. We need to change our approach, Jun said. If they expect us to strike from tall buildings 2 kilometers away, we need to find new methods. That night, Min met with Dai and Sun to plan their next operation. They had learned that an important Cryaxian general would be arriving to take command of the Seoul region after the previous commander had been killed by Sun's bullet 3 weeks earlier. They'll expect us to try for this new general, Min said, so they'll have extreme security around him. Day spread out his notes. I've been studying their patterns. They think we need height and distance, so they watch tall buildings. But what if we go lower instead of higher? The plan took shape. While the aliens guarded all tall structures, Sun would position himself in an underground maintenance tunnel that ran beneath the route the general would take. A small grate would give him a clear shot when the aliens passed overhead, a shot from below rather than above. Meanwhile, Min would make a show of preparing a sniper nest in a building the aliens were sure to check, drawing their attention away from Sun's true position. 3 days later, Min deliberately left several traces in an abandoned office building overlooking the planned route. Old food wrappers, a water bottle. A shell casing accidentally dropped. She knew the aliens would find these clues in their security sweep. Sure enough, the morning of the general's arrival, alien patrols stormed the building. Min watched from 3 blocks away as they established a security perimeter, satisfied her deception had worked. Miles away, Elder Sung coordinated 5 other diversionary operations, each designed to pull alien resources in different directions. When the general's procession moved through the streets, it was surrounded by hover guards and scanning drones. The general himself wore a fully enclosed suit with extra armor around the head and neck, the areas human snipers had targeted in the past. As the procession passed over a maintenance grate, Sun took his shot from below. The bullet traveled less than 10 meters, striking upward through a weak point, in the suit where the legs connected to the torso, a vulnerability the Resistance had identified from stolen Cryaxian medical records. The general fell. Chaos erupted. Sun was already moving through the pre-mapped tunnel system, while Cryaxian forces tried to locate the source of the shot. By evening, alien reprisals had begun. They flooded the underground tunnels with search parties. They rounded up hundreds of humans for questioning. In rage, they demolished an entire city block near where the general had fallen. "They're becoming desperate," Jum told the Resistance leaders that night in their new temporary base. They had to move every few days now to avoid detection. But desperate enemies make mistakes. A runner arrived with news from their informants. The Cryaxian High Command was in disarray. Field Marshal Bach had been recalled, considered a failure for allowing so many officers to be killed under his watch. "They're sending someone new," the runner reported. "The Supreme Commander himself, Rawl. He's coming to Earth to end the Resistance personally." The room fell silent. Supreme Commander Rawl was the highest military authority in the Cryaxian Empire, known for his ruthlessness and strategic brilliance. "This changes everything," Min said finally. "If we could eliminate him." As the meeting ended, Min checked her rifle once more. Supreme Commander Rawl was coming, and she would be ready. The news of Supreme Commander Rawl's impending arrival spread through the Resistance network like wildfire. Captain June called an emergency meeting in their newest hideout, an abandoned subway maintenance station 20 meters below ground. "Our sources say Rawl brings with him special hunter units," June explained to the gathered fighters. "They call them sniper killers. These units have only one mission: to find and eliminate our snipers, especially our leader." All eyes turned to Min, who had become the most successful and infamous of the Ghost Protocol snipers. The aliens had somehow learned her name, and Kim was now at the top of their target list. "They don't know what I look like," Min said calmly, though inside she felt a chill. "That gives us an advantage." The next morning, Min saw the first hunter drones while moving through an abandoned office building. They were smaller than regular Cryaxian drones, designed to fit through tight spaces. They moved silently and carried advanced sensors that could detect body heat, breath particles, and even the oils left by human fingerprints. Min froze as one passed just meters away, its sensor array slowly sweeping the room. She had prepared for this, coating her skin with a special clay mixture that masked her heat signature and wearing gloves to avoid leaving prints. The drone moved on. Later that day, she met with Dai in a crowded market. They pretended to be strangers examining vegetables while exchanging vital information. "The hunter units are using local collaborators," Dai whispered. "They're showing your name and asking for information. They're offering food and medicine to anyone who helps." Min nodded slightly. This complicated things. While most humans supported the Resistance, hunger and need could make informants of even loyal people. "We need to accelerate our timeline," she replied. "How soon will Rawl arrive?" 3 days. He'll make a speech in the old Olympic Stadium. It will be broadcast worldwide." Min made her decision. "Tell June I'm going dark. I'll make contact again the night before Rawl's speech." For the next 2 days, Min disappeared completely. She abandoned all her known safe houses and moved constantly, never sleeping in the same place twice. She observed the hunter units' patterns from a distance, noting how they operated. The aliens had gotten smarter. They positioned their new forces in concentric rings around likely sniper positions, working inward methodically. They used human collaborators to check identities in residential areas. They deployed their new drones to search areas too dangerous for patrols. On the second night, Min had a close call. She was sleeping in an abandoned maintenance closet when noises woke her. Hunter units were searching the building, floor by floor. She gathered her few possessions silently and slipped out through a ventilation shaft moments before they'd reached the door. As she climbed out onto a neighboring rooftop, a drone spotted her. It emitted a shrill alert tone and raced toward her position. Min had only seconds to react. She pulled out her small backup pistol and shot the drone. It fell, but the damage was done. Alarms sounded as hunter units converged on her location. Min ran across rooftops, jumped dangerous gaps between buildings, and finally descended a fire escape into a crowded market area. She pulled a prepared emergency disguise from her bag, a gray wig and old woman's clothing. By the time the hunter units arrived, she was shuffling slowly among vegetable stalls, unrecognizable. That night, she risked a brief meeting with June and the other resistance leaders. "They nearly had me," she admitted. "We can't underestimate these hunter units." June looked worried. "Maybe you should stand down for this operation. Let someone else take the shot at Raul." Min shook her head firmly. "No. I studied his patterns from the broadcasts. I know exactly where to position for the shot, and I'm still the best shot we have." The final planning session went late into the night. They devised a complex strategy involving multiple decoys and diversionary attacks to draw away the hunter units. Ta would pretend to be Min, deliberately leaving evidence in several locations across the city. Sun and 5 other snipers would take positions that looked promising, but were actually impossible shots. "And where will you really be?" Joan asked Min. She pointed to a spot on the map that no one had considered. The last place they'd look, right under their noses. The day before Supreme Commander Raul's arrival, the city filled with even more Kraaxian security forces. Hunter units patrolled every street. Drones filled the sky. The aliens set up energy shield generators around the stadium where Raul would speak. Min moved to her final position under cover of darkness, using old maintenance tunnels that had been mapped by the Resistance but remained unknown to the aliens. As dawn broke, she was already in place, invisible, patient, waiting for the most important shot in human history. Supreme Commander Raul arrived on Earth with the largest security detail ever seen. His massive command ship hovered directly above Seoul's Olympic Stadium, casting a dark shadow over the city. From this ship descended smaller craft carrying elite Kraaxian guards who formed a protective ring around the landing zone. Ta, one of the resistance fighters, watched from a hidden observation post. "There must be thousands of them," he whispered into his radio. "Hunter units everywhere." Across the city, the resistance plan was in motion. 5 decoy snipers had positioned themselves in locations that would draw alien attention. Each left deliberate traces, a footprint here, a heat signature there, just enough to trigger the hunter unit sensors. The aliens responded exactly as expected, sending forces to surround these decoy positions. Meanwhile, Jun had organized small attacks on 3 Kraaxian outposts on the opposite side of the city, drawing even more security forces away from the stadium. But nobody knew where Min was. She had told no one her exact position, not even June. This was for everyone's safety. If captured, they couldn't reveal what they didn't know. Min had spent 12 hours motionless inside a maintenance panel of the stadium itself. The panel had been installed when the stadium was renovated for the Olympics years ago, and the aliens had never discovered it. Through a tiny crack, she had a perfect view of the speaker's platform where Raul would stand. The distance was only 30 meters, point-blank range for a sniper of her skill. But this close position presented different challenges. The security would be incredibly tight, and escape would be nearly impossible. Min had accepted that this mission might be one way. 3 hours before Raul's speech, hunter units conducted a final sweep of the stadium. Their drones passed within centimeters of Min's hiding spot, but her special breathing techniques and heat-masking coverings kept her undetected. When Supreme Commander Raul finally emerged from his transport, Min got her first look at the alien who had become the focus of humanity's resistance. He was taller than other Kraaxians, with deeper color markings on his exoskeleton. He wore an elaborate protective suit with extra shielding around all the vulnerable points, targeted by human snipers in the past. But Min wasn't aiming for those points. Day's research had identified something else, a small neural cluster near the base of the Kraaxian skull that controlled their higher brain functions. It would require a perfect shot through a tiny gap where the helmet attached to the suit. As Rull approached the podium, Min prepared herself. One shot. One chance. The crack in the maintenance panel was barely wide enough for her specially modified rifle barrel. She would have to fire through this narrow opening at the perfect moment. Rull began to speak, his voice booming across the stadium, filled with human captives forced to attend. People of Earth, the translation came through speakers. Your resistance is futile. Today marks the end of your defiance. Min slowed her breathing. The alien crowd of officials around Rull shifted slightly. She needed a clear line to that small target area. We have identified your leader, this human called Kim, Rull continued. Even now, my hunter unit's close in on. Min squeezed the trigger. June nodded slowly. Then we might have a real chance, not just to resist, but to force them to negotiate. The most dangerous phase of their struggle was about to begin. The Craaxians were bringing their best to hunt them down. But the Ghost Protocol had proved one thing. On Earth, even the mightiest alien warlords could fall to a single well-placed bullet. The sound was lost in the amplified speech, but the effect was immediate. Supreme Commander Rull staggered backward, his forearms flailing in confusion. His guards looked around wildly, unable to determine where the shot had come from. Rull collapsed to the ground as chaos erupted. Craaxian officials ran in all directions. The guards formed a protective circle, but it was too late. The highest military leader of the Craaxian Empire lay dead on the stage. Min had already slipped out of her hiding place and into a pre-planned escape route, a narrow maintenance shaft that led to the stadium's old water system. She moved quickly but carefully, knowing that hunter units would flood the area within minutes. Above ground, the alien command structure fell into chaos. With Rull dead, his subordinates began fighting among themselves for control. Orders became confused. Some units withdrew to protect remaining commanders, while others launched brutal searches for the assassin. This was exactly what the Resistance had hoped for. Across the city, ordinary humans who had been waiting for this signal rose up against their confused occupiers. They couldn't match alien firepower, but their numbers and knowledge of the terrain gave them advantages. 3 days later, Min finally made it back to the Resistance headquarters, now operating openly from a captured Craaxian outpost. June embraced her as she entered. It worked, he said, his voice filled with emotion. They're in disarray across the planet. Some of their ships have already left orbit. Elder Sung hobbled forward, smiling for the first time in years. And this morning, we received a transmission from their fleet. They want to talk. Not about our surrender, about their withdrawal. Min set down her rifle, the weapon that had changed humanity's fate. They never understood, she said quietly. They thought their technology made them invincible. They forgot that determination sometimes matters more than advanced weapons. Outside, the streets filled with celebrating humans as news spread that the alien occupation was crumbling. A single shot from a simple human weapon had reminded the galaxy that Earth would never be truly conquered.